The sound of the crystal shattering across the ballroom was sharp enough to slice through memory itself, and for a moment everyone froze, including the men who had not planned to be there at all. Red wine arced through the air like a wound reopened, staining white linen and expensive silence, and in that instant you might have wondered what you would do if your past collided with your present in front of strangers who believed they knew everything about you. Would you shrink, or would you stand still and let the truth find you? The gala was held in a restored historic hotel in New York, all chandeliers and polished marble, the kind of place that smelled faintly of money and old promises. People came there to be seen, not to remember who they had once been. He stood near the edge of the room, wearing a borrowed suit that fit well enough to hide how uncomfortable he felt. His name was Matthew, a single father who had learned how to fold hospital bills into neat piles and how to smile for his daughter even when the fridge was almost empty. He had only come because the catering company needed an extra pair of hands and paid cash the same night. He told himself it was just another job, another long evening away from home, another night pretending he was invisible. Across the room stood a young woman in a deep red dress, her posture perfect, her smile rehearsed, her life measured in inheritances and expectations. Her name was Helena, raised between private jets and old family portraits, fluent in languages and trained to never show confusion. She was known as the German heiress, though she had lived in the United States for years, attending elite schools and charity galas like this one. People admired her from a distance, but few noticed how tightly she held her wineglass, or how her eyes kept scanning the room as if searching for something unnamed. Fate has a cruel sense of timing. When Helena turned, distracted by a sudden memory triggered by a melody drifting from the string quartet, her elbow struck Matthew's tray. The glass tipped, the wine flew, and the room inhaled together. The stain bloomed across the tablecloth, and the silence grew heavy with judgment. Embarrassment rushed into Matthew's chest, hot and familiar, the kind he had swallowed many times while explaining overdue payments or apologizing for things that were never truly his fault. He reached instinctively to help, murmuring an apology, already preparing himself to be dismissed or blamed. What happened next was quiet, almost invisible to everyone else, yet it changed everything. Helena spoke rapidly, her voice tight with shock and frustration, words flowing in German, sharp and precise, shaped by a lifetime of control. It was not meant for him, not really. It was the kind of private complaint people make when they believe no one else can understand. She spoke of carelessness, of standards, of how moments like this never happened in her world. And then Matthew lifted his head. Without raising his voice, without anger, he answered her in the same language, his accent imperfect but sincere, shaped by years he rarely spoke about. He told her he understood every word she said. He told her he was sorry. He told her the stain would wash out, but the day she was having seemed heavier than a ruined tablecloth. He did not defend himself. He did not shrink either. He simply acknowledged her words as if they mattered. Helena froze. Her face lost its practiced composure, her eyes widening not with anger but with something closer to fear. In that moment, she was no longer surrounded by wealth or security. She was standing on unfamiliar ground, confronted by a man she had already judged and dismissed. Have you ever been caught like that, your private thoughts suddenly reflected back to you, forcing you to see yourself clearly? If it were you, would you apologize, or would pride keep you silent? Matthew did not know why he had spoken. He had not used German in years, not since the winter he spent overseas after losing his wife, trying to outrun grief by changing countries. He had worked construction in Berlin, learned the language slowly, painfully, the way you learn anything when you have nothing else left. He returned to the United States with a child on his hip and a heart patched together with responsibility. Language became just another thing he packed away, along with dreams that felt too expensive to keep. Helena excused herself from the table, the gala continuing around her as if nothing unusual had happened. But inside, something cracked. She found Matthew later near the service hallway, standing alone, wiping his hands on a cloth that had already absorbed too much. She looked at him differently now, as if he were not part of the furniture but a person with a story she had accidentally touched. She asked about his German, about where he learned it, about how someone like him ended up here. He answered carefully, not asking for sympathy, not offering details that felt like begging. Over the following weeks, their paths crossed again, then again. Sometimes by coincidence, sometimes because Helena quietly asked the catering company for him by name. They spoke in English, occasionally drifting into German when emotions grew heavy. She learned about his daughter, Grace, who slept with a nightlight because darkness reminded her of hospitals. She learned about mornings when Matthew skipped breakfast so Grace could have seconds. He learned about Helena's loneliness, about expectations that felt like walls, about a life so planned there was no room for mistakes. Change did not come quickly or easily. There were misunderstandings, moments when their worlds collided too sharply. Matthew struggled with pride, with the fear of being seen as a charity case. Helena struggled with guilt, with realizing how often she had mistaken comfort for happiness. But something steady grew between them, not romance at first, but respect, the kind that makes you listen before you speak. The night Helena met Grace was quiet and unremarkable, yet it carried more weight than any gala. A small apartment, a shared meal, a child's cautious smile. Helena knelt to Grace's level, speaking softly, not as an heiress but as a woman who wanted to be understood. Grace responded with the honesty only children have, asking simple questions that stripped away pretense. Matthew watched, his chest tight, realizing how rarely life offered moments that felt like beginnings instead of endings. Years later, the stain from that spilled wine existed only in memory, yet its mark remained. It had revealed truths, broken assumptions, and opened a door neither of them had known how to knock on. Life did not transform into a fairy tale. Bills still came. Doubts still whispered. But kindness found room to grow, and second chances proved quieter, stronger, than first impressions. Just before the story closes, pause and ask yourself, if one unexpected moment exposed your hidden thoughts, would it shame you, or would it save you? If this story made you feel something real, leave a comment sharing what moment touched you the most. And if this journey stirred your heart, reminded you of kindness, regret, or the power of understanding, gently consider liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing, only if it truly meant something to you.